I'm Matt Dixon, and welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. The mission of Purple Patch is to empower and educate every human being to reach their athletic potential. Through the lens of athletic potential, you reach your human potential. The purpose of this podcast is to help time-starved people everywhere integrate sport into life. Today we talk to two inspiring and high-performing women of Purple Patch. By taking a smart approach and a broad perspective on performance, they've not only got faster but also stayed injury-free, and they've improved across other areas of life. We're proud of the high percentage of female athletes that we guide and coach at Purple Patch, well above the industry standard. And our focus is on helping these women develop a robust platform of health, get them smarter about their physiology, and improve across whatever is important to them. A key tool that we leverage in this journey is Insight Tracker. By assessing biometrics, including a complete hormonal profile, we gain insights specific to the woman as well as an action plan so that we can improve their current state. Now, everything is trackable so we can see meaningful results and, of course, the yield of our efforts and focus. And you can leverage it too. All you need to do is head to insidetracker.com/purplepatch and use this code, PurplePatchPro20. You'll get 20% off everything at the store. All right, enjoy the show. And welcome to the Purple Patch Podcast. As ever, your host, Matt Dixon. And today we continue our case study series. Over the last few weeks, we've been sprinkling in episodes where we have really meaningful and insightful conversations with athletes who are currently with Purple Patch and have something, compelling to share. Today we welcome Rachel Brown, a busy mother, passionate runner, and wonderful story of perspective, evolving an approach to achieve and the power of multi-sport to get faster in running. And then, following from this, we welcome Tiger Paton, our very own. Tiger began as a Purple Patch squad athlete several years ago, and is a wonderful story of what I would call leaning in. As a newer athlete, she engaged and leveraged all of the tools available in the program and became a key part of our community. In fact, we loved her so much, we asked her to join the Purple Patch team. She now leads all of our squad programs and is the program manager, is absolutely central to the community's fabric. And I asked Tiger to join me today, not just because she's a team member of Purple Patch, but I believe she is a wonderful example of athlete development across both sport and life. Her story is packed with perspective, lessons, and some really actionable advice. I think you're going to love it. But before we do it, we're going to do our new section. Remember, this is a restructured show now. It's a bit more streamlined. We'll get to the education quicker. So let's do Coach's Corner. Yes, Coach's Corner, where are we at right now? I want to give you a little glimpse into the insight of how we're approaching things at Purple Patch for our athletes so that maybe you can think about things in context in your own journey. Well, we are right in the midst of the races coming thick and fast. And quite frankly, I'm a little bit stunned with the recent results and the start of the season for the racers. We've had some incredible individual efforts. And over the recent episodes, I discussed our training emphasis and how we're going through a shift. Well, today is a little bit of a glimpse and a build onto that into some of the key educational aspects of where we're having our conversations and what we're thinking about at this stage of the year. And it's really important. So the first component that we're really doing a lot of work with athletes around is organizational effectiveness. Really making sure that athletes are sticking with that Sunday special habit that's so important to prioritize, integrate sport into their life, and making sure that they're able to adhere to the important habits that are going to actually promote health, yield great results from their training efforts, and of course, bring vibrancy into everything that they have across life. And it's really important that this is a focus right now because life continues to flow, but we're just creeping up some of the training demands. And so with that, it is a heightened priority to really stay effective and organized. A second thing that we're talking about is feed the engine. So really focusing on supporting the training that, as we discussed last week, is edging up a little bit. It's pretty challenging. Many of the sessions are more demanding. So we're really helping athletes connect with the right calories at the right time in the right amount. And it becomes so important We really need to fully support the tougher training and the intervals with the right fuel. We're also starting to think, by the way, in parallel of just integrating the first elements of race fueling and thinking about practicing and refining those. So a couple of the supporting elements that we use, we have a lot of athletes leveraging Fuelin right now, our partners, so that we can integrate both eating habits and start to practice the race fueling as it is aligned to their training because it synchronizes with the training program. We've also got a lot of athletes going through precision sweat testing, particularly here in the center, so that we can actually get insights into their own biochemistry, looking at their electrolyte content and helping them map strategic plans for their race fueling. So feed the engine is the second component. And then the third, and in many ways, I think the most important for me, is training management and decision making. This becomes really important, whether it's the training load going up, a lot of travel for work is going on right now, and there's a host of little bacterial and viral infections that are going around that are pushing athletes to the edge, a little added suppression and components like that. And we're really trying to refine and hone the tools and the skills around management. And so helping athletes make smarter real-time decisions. Should I push through or is it better to back off? How do I manage setbacks, emerge back out of sickness or maybe some time off because of work or something else? Making sure that they're able to really turn up emotionally and physically when the key sessions are, and focusing on the big upskilling in this area, really trying to empower athletes to take a broader perspective on their training, build consistency, a magic component. So whether it's the consultations we're having, whether it's some of the educational support, whether it's the conversations within the community, these are the main factors right now. I thought you might find that helpful. I think they're a critical part of coaching and certainly give you a little glimpse into how we think about training and the program going well beyond just what is written on the page and the workouts that they're being delivered via Training Peaks. Alrighty, with that, second, I just wanted to give you a little reminder. We are hiring a full-time professional coach. This isn't a hobby. This is a career for someone. I'm going to leave the job link in the show notes. It is a wonderful and pretty rare opportunity to become a part of the team. I promise I will be mentoring the successful candidate. They're going to become an integral part of the Purple Patch coaching team, as well as having responsibilities of helping athletes across the Purple Patch ecosystem with both education and consultations with the squad athletes. I encourage you to apply, or if you know someone that might be a great candidate, we're looking for a seasoned coach, and so feel free to share. I'd love to get someone in that's just a super fit that really amplifies it. All right, with that, shall we do it, Barry? It is kicking off with Rachel. It's time for the meat and potatoes. All right, yes, it is the meat and potatoes. And as mentioned, I am delighted to welcome to the show Rachel Brown. Rachel, thanks so much for joining us from Alabama.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
It's I've been excited for this conversation, and we gave it a crack, but we had some technical difficulties. So we're here for round two, and hopefully we have that strong connection between Alabama and San Francisco. But with every guest, I love to understand a little bit of background, a little bit of history, and that side of stuff. You've listened to the show many times, so you're pretty well versed in this. Why don't you just give the listeners a couple of minutes on your background, growing up, where you're at now, family situation, etc.
Okay. I grew up in Boaz, Alabama, which is a small town of about 10,000, 70 miles north of Birmingham. I currently live in Boaz, Alabama, and I've lived here my entire life other than when I attended college. And I've been married for 29 years. I have 7 children who are all boys, whose ages range from 14 to 24.
So, I mean, I want to pause here and talk about this because it's fascinating. I've got one of my best friends, Peter, has 3 girls, and he said, "I can't believe it, 3 girls, loves them dearly." What was that process like? As a decade's worth of sort of, was it a surprise? I know it's a surprise every time, but you're like, "There's got to be a girl coming up here some stage."
Yeah, you would think so. I don't know what a girl would do mixed in with all these boys, but yeah, it's unbelievable that we were able to have 7 boys, and it's been nonstop for my oldest is 24, so for 24 years now, just
Full
full-time
steam.
job, a lot of action, a lot of fun though.
I
It's
can
been a
imagine,
real
tremendous.
adventure.
I can't imagine what Thanksgiving dinners are and things like that, so it must be a lot of volume of food. That's
Oh
all I
yeah,
can imagine.
especially with all those boys.
Well, it's the like we always talk about the executives and CEOs and people like that that we work with, but your life is the epitome of time starved. Like there's a lot going on, but we're gonna dig into that. But I'd love to also know your sporting background. And did you grow up doing sports globally?
Yes, I was always active, but my primary sport was basketball. I started playing basketball when I was 12, played all the way through high school. I went to college on a basketball scholarship. I played 2 years at a junior college and then 2 years Division 3.
Wow, fantastic. Okay, so what was the catalyst then to get into endurance sports and starting to go linear rather than every direction and for time and things like that. How did that come about?
Well, I guess after my final basketball game, I knew I wanted to continue to stay in shape because, that just been a part of my life.
Hmm.
And so I just decided I would start running. It was a simple sport. I did a lot of running in basketball anyway. So I basically just started running just to stay in shape.
Fantastic. And you went on. It was, I guess, as you'd gone through the hurricane of being the mum, the really busy time. But was it mid 40s that you really started to get the bug with a little bit more serious running, edging towards things like marathons and that side of stuff?
Yeah, somewhere around 45. My children were older. I had a little bit of breathing room. So I decided I'd like to start training. And I thought about training for a race. I thought I'd start training for marathons. So I wanted to complete a few halves. And I thought, well, if that goes well, I'll try to do my first marathon. So
Fantastic.
that's how I got into the competition.
So I want to dig into the nuts and bolts a little bit because you know 5, 6, 7 years ago, starting to do marathons, you've now gone on a journey, predominantly a runner, but we'll get into some of the multi-sport stuff a little bit later as you leverage it with training. But when you reflect back, what were some of the challenges? And maybe we should focus predominantly. You can focus on running globally if you'd like, but also training and competing in marathons. When you go back, what were some of your challenges that you faced?
I guess my primary challenges were optimizing my training time because, of course, I was very busy and I was unsure how to do that. And, when I started to get serious about improving my running, I started reading all that I could about running, articles, books, and, it was very frustrating, intimidating, and confusing. Confusing in the way that, um, most of the training or the books that I read, they advised how to train for a race, but I really wasn't sure what to do before the race or after the race. How do you prepare even to get ready to do a training plan, or what do you do after? I didn't know how to train progressively for a year. So that was something that was a real challenge for me. And I was really confused, intimidated because, up until this point, I'd never really ran more than a 10K. So um, I never did speed work. So just looking at all those plans and all that information and all the different names for speed work just was very intimidating for me.
And it's interesting, isn't it? I was chatting to someone just the other day and said if you Google, and I was actually talking about open water swimming, as how to get better at open water swimming, but in your case, get ready for a marathon. If you Google it, you're going to get 25 different results, and you're going to get 25 different opinions, and most of the people that are supplying those opinions are, on the face of it, pretty credible. So you've got this massive blizzard of conflicting advice. How are you supposed to filter through, cut through that noise and say, "This is what" it almost becomes a second job straight away? Yeah, is that I'm gonna assume
Right.
that's what it
Very
felt.
time consuming, very time
Yeah.
consuming.
And were there any, with the training in preparation for the show, you talked a little bit about, your propensity in the early years to drive drive up, which is very common, of course. I would say probably the most common mistake, but chasing quantity over quality of running and an accumulation of hours, was that a big challenge for you? And maybe dig into that a little bit for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I was reading all this information, that's what the primary focus was, volume. Build the volume, you'll get better. So that's for the most part what I would do is just read books and find some information and train according to that book for a while, and that became frustrating, or for whatever reason, I couldn't handle the volume, or just the I was intimidated from the speed sessions that they prescribed. So then I'd go to a different plan. I kind of followed that cycle over and over, just one plan, one article, uh, variety of different ways. But basically, my training was based on volume. Now, I was swimming a little, and I was riding an indoor spin bike. I had an indoor spin bike in our home gym. So I had a little bit of variety, and I was strength training. So that was some positives. But primarily, my running was just very random. Uh, ran the same course, same speed, no variety whatsoever.
I'm interested. Did the body break down at all? Were you sort of set back with many injuries?
No, fortunately,
Great.
I knew that I needed to be very careful. I was 45 years old. I didn't have a background in high volume running anyway. So I didn't run every day. I was still running like 3 or 4 days a week, just trying to focus on as much volume as I could during those 3 days, particularly the long run. That's what it was all about, the long run, trying to, build the volume in that. So I was able to stay healthy.
That's great.
No significant injuries.
I tell you what, if we just sort of pause and go back right there, having a little bit of autonomy. You mentioned you swam a little bit, you used the bike, and I want to underline you you certainly don't identify or do triathlons. So this wasn't in pursuit of you getting ready for an Ironman or anything like this. You're a runner, and but even you had intuition to filter through that blizzard of information that you got and say, you know what, this is probably pretty smart. So it's you were doing some smart stuff there, and it was wonderful to hear that you did do strength training, right when you start, because starting at 45 going through, you've heard me talk about it many times, but that's a critical sort of cornerstone. As what one more question before we sort of move on to the evolution and how things have evolved since you've been with Purple Patch. But I'm interested in things like uh, approach to eating, fueling, hydration, rest and recovery. Did you have much strategy around those areas, or were you busy enough just trying to get dinner on the table for seven boys?
Well, actually, those were priorities for me, and it was always important that we teach our children proper eating, and we tried to always keep them active. So that was something that I focused on a lot anyway.
Fantastic.
Not to the degree I learned so much, from Purple Patch, particularly the 4 pillars, just how to get that organized and more precise than what I was doing. But it was definitely a priority, just not as much as it should have been.
Well, it's fantastic that it was, and great job with the kids and that side of stuff. So I guess what was the sort of leading us into Purple Patch a little bit? What was the catalyst to say, you know what, I'm not going to print out another PDF plan. I'm not going to sort of just cycle through. Well, did we just randomly happen to be the next thing, or was there a catalyst to decide to get involved with the Run Squad sort of thing? I'm interested. What was the sort of initiative, the spark for that?
Well, I guess what happened was during the research, of course, I came upon your podcast, started listening to your podcast, and I listened to your approach, time starved approach. I was really interested in that. And the multi-sport with running, and I actually that was at a time where you sold an education membership.
Oh yeah,
I guess you know
yeah.
what I'm talking about. So I
Yeah,
bought one of those, and I just researched your website and read all your running philosophy, training philosophy, and I thought this is what I think I need to follow. And I, for a while, just listened to the podcast, and I think shortly after that, y'all started the Tri Squad, and I thought, well, if I can just, I'll just join Squad because I knew from reading that y'all were in the future had planned were planning a run squad as well. So I thought I'll just follow the Tri Squad until they start Run Squad, then I'll jump aboard that. So that's what I did, and I didn't train like a Ironman, but I did follow all the strength and really tried to complete all the runs y'all had on the plan. And then I do the swimming and biking at a certain level, not anywhere to the level of an Ironman.
Of
But
course, yeah.
that's what I did. And then as soon as Run Squad started, I changed over to the multi-sport run approach.
Just a little interlude here, guys. I want to talk to you about Tri Squad. It is so much more than a program in which you just follow a training plan. That's yesterday's news. What it takes to be successful in your sport, particularly if you're time-starved, is to have a program that actually dances with the demands of life so that you can integrate it into life. And beyond that, you want to become smarter across all aspects around your performance, around how to prioritize and maximize sleep, how to actually develop really simple practices in fueling, in hydration, in daily eating practices to promote your health and maximize your training. And along it all, you also can leverage the benefit and power of team and community, as well as a team of coaches that are the wind behind your back. This is a very special program designed specifically for folks like you, time-starved, looking to achieve and get results and nail their goals in sport, but also not forgetting about all of the other things that are important in life. There are 3 simple steps. Just head to the website, purplepatchfitness.com, check out the squad page, reach out to us. You can just click for a complimentary consultation. We will set up a complimentary call, understand your challenges and goals, and make sure that you're a great fit for the program, and then you can be up on the program within minutes. Very simple, and we're pretty confident you're going to love it. We'll give you a 30-day money-back guarantee so that if you don't feel it's for you, we'll of course return the favor. And tell me how what's been the impact or the results, the biggest changes, I guess, the biggest evolution when you said, okay, I'm going to dance on, because it's a little bit, it's more encompassing. Yeah, it's like the Run Squad, the Tri Squad, these programs that we talk about, they're programs, they're not planned. So we have these sort of very flexible, for folks that are not Purple Patch athletes, very, very flexible, dynamic programs that integrate and work with the demands of life, but also the sort of wealth of education that comes with it and supporting information and resources and tools. So when you immerse from your experience obviously I'm not asking this for to make it a huge advertorial or anything like that, but what were some of the evolutions, changes, benefits of you getting involved in the program? How did it spark your performance?
Well, the first thing, I was able to get on a year-round progressive training program, which, I had some structure. I could focus on key sessions, which had an intent that I could follow. I knew what the purpose of my session was. I knew what each phase of the year, the purpose for each phase of the year. And it was just like, I learned so much, and it was just tremendous help. And then I was able to sit down and on every Sunday and do what y'all call the Sunday special. I made a commitment to that so I could sit down, organize my training, and integrate the 4 pillars into that, so I could focus not just on strength and my run and multi-sport, but also focus on my nutrition, how to eat around training during the week, and how to plan my training so I could get enough sleep if I needed a recovery day. So those were some of the primary things that I initially used. And then later, of course, coaching consults have been extremely invaluable for me.
Oh yeah, having
Just
yeah, and for folks listening, what that is the opportunity for an athlete to lock in a spot one to one with a coach for a really small fee, where you can really dig into your own individual, whether it's scheduling, whether it's race strategy, whether it's planning and what workouts are appropriate, etc. But little 30 or 60-minute slots that you can spend, and so you've leveraged quite a lot over the course of your journey, yeah.
yes, one of my biggest mistakes was not using them sooner, but yes. They have been invaluable for my training. I've learned so much, and they really helped me understand the program and set up race specific workouts. So yeah, very valuable.
I want to take a pause on the questions, and I just want to do a little reflection, and I hope I don't embarrass you with this, Rachel. You're a freaking smart athlete. It's everything you said right now. Getting into this sport and deciding to train on for marathons, and 45 years of age, you go to the World Wide Web, blizzard of information, and through there, you're straight away you're integrating some really smart things on your own, saying, "Okay, multi-sport is good for me. That makes me feel good. I'm going to do strength training. Like thumbs up, great." And you come in. The first thing that you say when I said, and we didn't stage this. Said, what was the biggest impact? And the first two things that you say is, I got into a year-round progressive program, and I effectively, put in words you meant, unlocked effectiveness through the Sunday special. I think those are two absolute cornerstones of effective training for someone that wants to get better. You are training for marathons. And the biggest mistake that people make is, okay, we've just had Boston. I've got Boston coming up. So what do I need to do over these 12 weeks to get ready for that? Now I've got make it up Berlin. I'm going to go and get ready for this race. And you've got this through line mindset of, I need to get on year-round structured training that's progressive. Thumbs up. That's huge. That's so valuable. And then the Sunday special, I think that is the habit where spending just a little bit of time, it doesn't matter whether you're a really busy mum of seven, trying to do marathon training, leading a multinational organization, an elite professional athlete, a little bit of time, right, why we like to call it Sunday is most people venture into Monday. We're looking at all components of life and all components of performance, nutrition, recovery, sleep, exactly what you talked about. And organizing is probably the greatest key to unlock effectiveness and productivity. And so you can tell you're making my heart explode a little bit here, because that's the golden stuff. Fantastic. And so it's terrific. And I guess, to sort of wrap it up, what's the and sorry, I'm on a monologue, but I'm going to keep going. And then you lean into this thing that I think is sitting there as a little pot of gold for folks on these, incredibly affordable, the Run Squad program, and leaning into the individual expertise of that coach consult. Really valuable, because it again is another tool that you say, okay, now I've carved through that noise, and I know where I'm going, and I'm able to create consistency. So I'd love to know what the outcome of all of that is. How you're feeling as an athlete now. It sounds like you're doing really, really well. And what's your broad perspective on yourself as an athlete now? You're a few years into this. How are things going, I guess?
Well, things are going really well. I mean, I really enjoy my training. It's fun. It's challenging. It adds a lot of quality to my life rather than being a stressor. And we've talked about it. I've been able to stay healthy, which is one of the reasons I wanted to follow multi-sport, because I really believed that it would decrease my likelihood of developing overuse injury. So that's and it's done that. And as far as races, I've been able to perform well in the races. I've been able to set a PR in half marathon, 10K, 5K. And, one of my goals was to be able to be competitive in my age group. And I'm now competitive in my age group. And so, as far as that goes, I've been able to accomplish that. And my training is just fun, and that's what it's all about, is just enjoying it, having a good time, and, making it a part of your life, but not the only thing in your life.
That's the definition of a purple patch athlete. It's a part of your life. I was just about to say, it sounds like this whole journey is additive to the most important stuff of your life. Being a mum and everything else that you've got going on in life that we haven't dug into today. But it sounds like it's really additive and complementary rather than a distraction or a source of tension or conflict in a way.
Yeah, exactly. It is. And I think one other thing that's helped me is just looking at training from a long term approach. That has helped me so much. It takes the pressure off of performing and, whether you miss a workout or whether you have to take a recovery day, just that's just something that I feel like is really been beneficial. Just that philosophy that y'all have taught about long term approach.
It's fantastic. I guess my last question is for listeners, and we're going to have listeners that are running that are maybe struggling with cycles of injuries or feel like it's maybe that a part of their identity they have to break 4 hours or break 5 hours or break 3 hours, whatever it is. Otherwise, they're a failure. A lot of sort of challenges, people that are maybe struggling to fit this into life. But some people that think, I can't do this. I've got too much other stuff going on or whatever it might be. Have a broad swath of listeners that might gain inspiration. And I guess as an athlete, for those listeners, what are a few of the maybe the key lessons that you would like to, as an athlete, tell them that you've gone through? What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the course of your journey?
I think the biggest lessons for me would be to focus on, as I said earlier, the long term approach and focus on being consistent and try to be as effectively organized as you possibly can so that you can make the most use of your time, optimize your time. And, just if you look at it from a long term perspective, you can enjoy the journey, enjoy the training rather than just focusing on one particular race. You've got a lot to look forward to if you're focusing on the long term approach.
It's fantastic. Well, I can't thank you enough, and it's been so inspirational and such a joy. But beyond that, I just want to say, great job. Keep being you. Keep the mindset and keep driving forward, because it's really challenging to get things right, and you're getting things right. And that's why coaches coach. When you like to see that, and you see it, so it makes my heart flutter. So thank you very much for joining the show, Rachel, and sharing your story. And I really hope that folks that are listening, we've got a few that are going to spark the excitement, the desire, the courage to really kickstart their journey and start having fun along the journey, but also having a lot of fun, having a lot of success as well. So I really appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you for having me and keep up the good work.
Thanks so much. Take care. We welcome to the show a very familiar face to everyone at Purple Patch, and including myself, Tiger Paton. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Matt.
Hello there.
Good to be
It's
here.
nice to not just be in another meeting. And in fact, we're going to have a really fun conversation over the next 20 or 30 minutes. For listeners who don't know, Tiger is actually a team member of Purple Patch. And you might think, well, why am I asking Tiger to come on a show as a Purple Patch team member? But your story becoming a part of the Purple Patch team is a little different. We love to recruit from the inside, as it were, but you were originally a Purple Patch athlete, paying member, a very noisy one, really engaged in the community, and have, I think, a really lovely story. And among all of the Purple Patch athletes, I think you've really leveraged the program to the hilt. And Kelly and I were having so many conversations, so many emails with you now, what feels like many moons ago, and finally said, "Will you just come and join us? Will you just become a part of the team?" And now you oversee all of the Purple Patch squad programs. Everyone that is a Purple Patch athlete knows you. But my conversation today, why I wanted you on the show, is for Tiger the athlete. And I think you've got a lovely story. So I'm so glad that you're willing to share with the listeners some of your journey. Are you ready for this?
I am longtime listener, first time caller. So let's do it.
Very true. So you know how it goes. You've listened to the show. I love to hear a little bit of background. You are a Midwesterner. So why don't you give the listeners a little bit of background in family life, everything like that to begin?
Yeah, so I've lived pretty much my whole life in the Chicago suburbs. Not a whole lot of terrain or elevation out here, but it's been great. And I'm really grateful to have had a super supportive family, super supportive parents, one older brother, and provided a lot of great role modeling in a lot of ways, but not anything related to sport. And so I grew up in a pretty nerdy family, grew up pretty nerdy myself, watched a lot more Indy 500s than NFL football games, and so I didn't have a lot of initial structure for sport, but certainly was your typical active kid, and very much more of a bookworm than an athlete growing up.
Yeah, were sports in any way really a part of your childhood?
I think I dabbled a little bit here and there at a very hobby level. I did some dance, and then later on, I did get into horseback riding. So I did that for several years, and that was one of the things that actually um, ended up setting me a bit on this journey. I had a pretty severe injury, um, from that sport, and but I never did anything serious. I never did really like organized sports or anything like that. And because I had some health quirks and some other things, I never really thought that that was a path for me either. And so I just tended to go in another direction more academically.
Oh, so now as we talk, you've done multiple half Ironmans. You've done well in them. You've certainly developed athletically over the last few years. But what was the catalyst to get into endurance sports of all things?
So it was uh it was initially what tipped the scales was a friend who was doing an Ironman who just would not shut up about it, and she happened to be doing this at a time in my life where I really needed a change, and I didn't realize how much I needed it. Um, she was doing it for her own reasons. She also really needed a change in her life, and I thought maybe this is what I need. Maybe this is what I should be doing. I was in a place where I knew it wasn't where I wanted to be mentally or physically, but I also didn't know quite how to get out of that. And we can talk a bit more about that there. But it was really a moment where I said, maybe I'll try this. I'd done a few things here or there, but just didn't really know where to start, um, actually, on the path of becoming an athlete, and had this opportunity put in front of me. So I decided, without being able to run a mile or swim across a pool, to sign up for my first triathlon.
It was literally. It's funny. I recently had a discussion with a purple patch athlete, Ben Cooper, who said to me, "I just had to get going. I needed to take the first step." And you're sort of very much like that. As sharing as much as you feel comfortable. What was the broad sort of challenges you had? Physical challenges, yeah, as well as broad challenges. Share a little bit of context there if you can.
Yeah, so I think part of it was where, kind of on the life performance side, where I was. I After college, I worked some physically active jobs and all of that, and then, like a lot of people, ended up shifting to a more sedentary desk job type situation, and didn't really realize the slow effect that that had, the transition away from just daily life activity, that had on my overall health. I had these underlying health conditions, and in that shift to a desk job, the other thing that had changed there was that I was working for startups. I was working for some smaller companies. It was a great experience, but there was an enormous amount of additional life stress. And so I had the addition of the stress, the reduction of the physical activity that exacerbated some of those underlying conditions. And I developed an enormous amount of fatigue, and stress, and ended up in that kind of cycle where you don't feel great, so you don't do anything. And because you're not doing anything, you just end up feeling worse. And that kind of cycle slowly continued. And then the other thing that happened was that, when I did try to break out of that, when I did try to get into activities or other things, that I ended up with a lot of injuries, because I didn't know how to do this correctly. And I didn't have any of the sort of supporting connective tissue or infrastructure around, how to fuel right for these activities, how to have the right technique, any of that. And so a lot of my initial attempts to kind of break out of this inevitably ended up with me in failure. And so I didn't really have a good way, a good path out of where I was. And so I ended up really tired, really stressed, and without a good sense of how to actually break through that and set myself up for success. And I didn't really know what success would even look like for me, because I just assumed, well, I have these shortcomings, I have these physical limitations. Maybe this is just what my life should look like. And it really wasn't until I did that triathlon and I said, I was so sure I wasn't going to be able to do it. And then I did it. And I'm like, what else can't I do? And that, I think, helped me kind of reframe and say, okay, maybe I don't feel like I can get out of this, but what if I was wrong? What if there is a way out? And so I really just needed to figure out a way to break out of the fatigue and injury cycle. And Purple Patch actually, oddly, was showed up in my life at just the right time for
Well,
that.
and I'll ask that, but I sort of, so you had this. I just want to repaint the picture a little bit. You had this sedentary job. You were mentally, physically
Yep.
fatigued. You took the step. You took to do something better. Was your approach, pretty random as you went through that? You sort of trained for this thing, but you ended up in doing something good. Maybe started to feel better, but also were stuck in this cycle of what should I really be doing? And maybe this is going to be a journey that's also saddled with a different set of injuries, a different set of fatigue. Is that an accurate representation of it?
For sure. I perhaps could have picked a simpler sport to start with,
Yeah.
but I did. I came into it and I didn't really know. There was a lot of competing messaging, and a lot of the traditional messaging that was out there when I started to get interested and excited about the sport was still very much a traditional, like, you got to go hard. You have to,
Yeah.
you
Accumulate
have to
miles.
really, yeah. And so it wasn't necessarily a sustainable approach, but I was trying to, weave through all of this complexity around how I was supposed to train and how many hours and how to fuel and how to do all of these things. And it was, even though it was an exciting adventure in a lot of ways, it was also really overwhelming. And for somebody that didn't grow up a D1 swimmer or super experienced in sport, it was really tough to navigate. And that also just added more to the stress, especially because I was busy already. And the thought of trying to figure out now, adding time on to figure out how to navigate all of this was
Incredibly
tough.
complex. So how did you? I don't even, and apologize. I don't remember exactly when you joined Purple Patch, because we spend every day with each other now, and so how did you find Purple Patch, and 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 what was the catalyst of reaching out and becoming a part of the squad?
Yeah, it was, again, just trying to sift through all of the messaging that was out there. I listened to a lot of podcasts. You were on a different, I think, triathlon podcast, and I kind of liked what I heard. And I eventually realized that you had your own, and I started listening to it. And what really resonated with me was this idea that even though this is a complex sport, and even though this is like a really big journey, that there's actually you can make it really simple and really sustainable. And that was so fundamentally different from the traditional, like, go hard, high mileage, high volume type of messaging out there. It was a completely different approach that was centered around, here's how to fit this into your life, into the space that you have. And if you do that correctly, you can actually make more space in your life. And it really, what really did it for me was this idea that, like, yes, you can take this incredibly complex thing and you can simplify it, and it's going to enrich not just your fitness levels, not just improve your ability to be an athlete, but there's also all of these other knock-on effects that begin to occur around things that have nothing to do with triathlon, around how you eat, around how you organize your day, around how you start to really take control of your life. And I was in this place where there was so much stress and so much overwhelm. As much as the fitness end of it, I was attracted to, it was almost more this whole other piece, this life performance piece that really that really resonated with me. And I'm like, oh shoot, yeah, I need the fitness, but this other thing, that's what I really need.
It's yeah, you identified in many ways how I see what makes a purple patch athlete in many ways. Sort of the greediness that we are. We want two things. We want to get the results in the sport, but we want the knock-on effect and the amplification on that. What have been for you as an athlete? Obviously, you help a lot of athletes now. You organize and lead all of the squad programs. But for you as an athlete, what was some of the biggest or the most impactful components of the program, the methodology for you? What really helped you? I know one of them was definitely the Sunday special. That's because we embed that in our culture at Purple Patch. We eat our own dog food. We do that, but maybe start with there. But I'd love to hear also some of the other components that were really impactful for you as an athlete.
Yeah, I think the Sunday special and this whole concept around learning how to prioritize, learning how to organize, and wrapping your head around the thought that, when everything is key, when everything is important, nothing is. And learning how to really set priorities, that was huge. And that allowed me to have the tools to develop consistency, which was so key. And then, once I had that foundation, it was easier to actually focus my attention on the training itself. And that there were a variety of things that were huge for me. The first definitely was strength training, and I will shout that from the rooftops all day long. Strength training was pivotal for me, both in terms of being able to rectify all of these long-standing chronic niggles, chronic injuries, finally breaking out of that cycle, addressing a lot of the long-standing imbalances and things that had occurred because of those previous injuries, because of those health issues, and also because I had a sedentary job and lifestyle in a lot of ways. But that really drove overall health and performance improvements on the triathlon side. Um, that was huge. And the technique element was also huge. Learning how to actually do all of this right.
Yeah.
The swim, bike, the run, especially the bike. Again, not a lot of mountains in Illinois. And but the technical elements, learning how to really maximize my posture, my momentum, and all of that was huge. Um, and learning how to moderate my effort, and then all of the supporting elements too, like learning how to fuel properly. That was something that was, I maybe I thought I knew how to do. I didn't know how to do it. um, but all of these other pieces, the fueling, the hydration elements, and all of those then fed into this positive feedback loop where my training was better, my energy was better, and things started to improve from there.
Team, if you Google any topic around performance, I'm trying to get faster running off the bike, I'm trying to sort out my race fueling, you're going to receive 25 different results with 25 different opinions, many of them contradictory and seemingly from valid sources. This is the blizzard of noise that makes it so hard to filter and focus on the key elements that are going to make you faster. And it's even more challenging when you've got all of the other competing demands in life. A part of our role at Purple Patch is to filter the noise, to actually stay on the cutting edge of everything that is going to yield performance gains for you, but deliver them to you in simple, effective, and actionable steps. You won't just receive a training program when you become part of Purple Patch. You'll have someone, a team, partnering with you to make you smarter, reduce the noise, and give you time back. And the outcome of that is you're gonna get faster. You're gonna nail your goals. 3 simple steps. Simply reach out to us, info@purplepatchfitness.com, and we're gonna set up a complimentary consultation. We'll talk all about the program, we'll understand your goals, and then if it's a fit, you can be on program, registered within minutes. And finally, of course, we're pretty confident about this, a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you don't love the program, well, don't worry. We'll shake hands, say goodbye, and wish you the very best of luck. Enjoy the rest of the show. I want to come back to the technique a little bit. You mentioned living in and around Chicago area, which is pretty much dead flat. You might get a little headwind, you might get a little tailwind, but outside of that, there aren't too many mountains. And I know from you, and I'm going to tell a little story about you when when I decided ultimately as the leader of Purple Patch, we are going to adopt this new bike platform. And the reason that I wanted to do it, and we had a lot of discussions internally with in the team, I said, this is an amazing coaching tool. And this will help people go faster. They're going to become smarter on the bicycle. And you were very passionate about a certain Swift, and you loved it, and you were pretty vocal against it, and said this is crazy, and you want to be leading. And I said we are going to try and transition our athletes off of these other platforms, which there's nothing wrong with those other platforms, that they're good training, because this is a game changer. And I remember saying that, and I'm not telling this story to say I told you that we're right, but now almost every Purple Patch athlete has made the divide, the jump, including you. And I want you to focus. I want you to give your experience of that riding platform, because I think as we leverage it more, it's called velocity, but as we leverage it more and we leverage the Purple Patch approach with terrain management, and that's what I want you to focus on. I think we're getting smarter on how to use it even more. How has that impacted your bike riding? Because I think it's been pretty big for you, yeah, of your understanding of how to ride a bike.
It's been it's been mind-blowing, and I'm pretty sure somewhere there's still a text that says, I never wanna use this, like, Swift is better, and I have never been so wrong. So, yeah, I think, if you wanna put it into a single sentence, Swift doesn't teach you how to ride a bike.
Yeah.
And there's such a huge divide. I don't think any of us have an illusion that indoor riding is the same as outdoor riding, but there is such a huge divide between being stuck at a set power that's being controlled by something external and following something along on a screen and being able to completely check out versus being in a platform that can begin to replicate some of the elements of terrain, some of these elements of outdoor riding, and actually give you the feedback that you need to learn how to maximize your momentum over that terrain. And again, we don't have a lot of huge climbs out here. We have little punchy pieces here and there, but I didn't realize how much I was missing out on. I didn't even there were so many dots that I didn't even realize that I could connect. Um, and that was massive. The technical elements, learning, yes, you need to get stronger. And there's a lot of platforms out there that will help you get stronger. But that strength is useless if you don't know how to apply it as efficiently as you can. And I tell people all the time that, like, I can pass folks with way more expensive bikes and higher FTPs than I have on a course because I know how to apply the power that I've created over that terrain. I understand how to best maximize my momentum when I'm going over hills, how to be able to carry that energy through, how to be more efficient in where I choose to apply my power or not apply it. And even though I live in the middle of the flatlands, I can go to pretty darn hilly courses and do really, really well. And certainly if I go to a flat course, I can do great too. But I now have the tools to be able to ride phenomenally well over any kind of terrain. And I can do that sitting in suburban Chicago in my room. And the other piece of it that has been so incredibly important for me is that coaching
Oh yeah.
element. So there's a ton to learn about how to optimize the power that you're generating, and that's huge. Part of that comes from the terrain management. Part of it also comes from understanding how to not waste that energy on improper technique, improper body positioning that leaves you really fatigued down the road.
Mhm. It's this morning's session was probably a great example of this, because we were doing 4 by 6 minutes, and it was right around threshold, and most people in the listeners are going to understand sort of threshold, tipping point, zone 4, whatever you want to call it. And we started to transition at this time of year around that, and we deliberately designed it where we did 4 of these intervals, and the odds were just steady state, and we called it building the physiology. So ride at zone 4, right around your FTP or threshold. And we wanted to do that so that it's that's how the rest of the world is doing it. And then we did the evens with terrain management. So we embedded in the system a couple of rollers, and we were looking for a through line of physiological stimulus around zone 4, but coaching to distributing the power so that we could get best speed while working on that physiology. And it's really amazing the difference in mental focus and application of looking at, as I'm coaching live, all of the people live, and of course the people in Studio One in San Francisco. It's just a different thing. And we haven't gone anywhere. That's the funny thing. We've just been, in fact, most of the time in Studio One, I'm just getting abuse shouted at me. But yeah, it's really remarkable. And as I think about those intervals, another word came to mind for me, which is, I know, really important for you. In fact, I would say it was probably one of the most important things for Kelly and I to reach out and say, would you like to leave your job and come and work at Purple Patch? It's a simple word of community and doing it with others. And you were an athlete that had very little background in endurance sports. You weren't a part of some huge dry group in the Chicago area. Community has always been very, very important to you. How you're now leading a community, but you're also an athlete in that community, and we're very clear about that. How's that from an athletic side of it? How has that helped you or been a part of your journey?
It's been pivotal, and I have to give a shout out in particular to Jeff, who I know we had on the podcast just recently as well, because he was one of the first people to reach out and sort of help bring me further into the community. But I really didn't have a lot of support structure. I didn't really have um, a good sense. I had a training plan in front of me and all of that, but I didn't have this extra layer of support until I joined Purple Patch that allowed me to maintain accountability and motivation and commitment. So I think one of the most critical elements of that community is that it's there to fuel you on the days where you don't necessarily feel like showing up yourself, and that's really critical. But there was also such a breadth of helpful information, and people meeting me where I was at, and being incredibly inclusive. I mean, there are folks in here who have been to Kona a number of times, people who are unbelievably good athletes, and I came in with zip experience, and it was so helpful to have those folks help me along where I was in the journey and get to that next step. And then obviously throughout the pandemic, that was, it was huge having that support structure there. But even coming out the other side, having that accountability, having that shared sense of journey, and knowing that we're all moving towards this shared goal, and having people around you who believe in who are cheering you on, who are going to be there to continue to push you on the days where you don't necessarily quite feel like pushing yourself.
Which is was terrific. Yeah, I mean, you talked about the pandemic. That was a really important time for us. I would say, as an organisation, you've been a part of it. It's probably one of our proudest moments in our 15 plus years of really helping people navigate what was a pretty horrible time for all of us. Yeah, to to actually provide sport as a framework in life and continue to be a part of something, even though we didn't have anyone to connect in real life, at least for a couple of months for most of us. So that was so important. I want to finish on the impacts, because you talked about. I mean, you've got faster. You've finished several half Ironman races, but you also talked about the impact of life. So you taking on this journey. You went from sedentary, you took up triathlon. You've now developed physically. I've seen the videos. You are absolutely, I was going to say strong as an ox, but that might sound a little bit rude, so I won't say that. But you're freaking strong, and you're just an athlete. That's what you are now, which is just so fantastic to see. From your lens, what's the impact for you of your journey, your physical journey? How's it impacted your life? What have the results been like for you?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to sound super cliche, but it really has been transformational. It's been absolutely life changing in a way that when I started, and I'm still very much on the journey, but certainly when I started the journey, I'd never imagined that I could be anywhere close to here. And that's on the athletic side. Yes, there's been a lot of these really cool achievements, but on the life performance side, I think that's where I, in some ways, wasn't expecting to see such a huge difference. Um, and it starts at even just the most basic pieces. It's having so much more energy, it's having so much more sense of empowerment and control over my daily life. And actually, like I said, even though I've added triathlon in to an already pretty busy life, that it has actually given me more space, and more opportunities. And and I am so much healthier. I've learned how to, and I'll give fuel certainly a shout here as well, but learned how to fuel myself properly, learned how to eat better. I've become just so much healthier overall, and gained a huge amount of accountability, a huge amount of support, obviously from the community. But I think from a daily point of view, it's really hard to live a fulfilling life, to be happy and all of that when you're stressed, when you're in chronic pain, when you're always feeling overwhelmed. And this structure, this sport has given me a chance to turn that around. And it's also given me an opportunity to start tackling some really exciting goals. And I think that's something that everybody needs to have in their life, is a chance to chase something really exciting. And I will take a second to just look, if we just zoom in on, let's say, the past 6 months. In the fall, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do my first marathon this year. I never thought that's something I'd be able to do, but now I'm at a point where I think I could, and I really set up. I really doubled down on nailing the basics, which I'm sure all of our listeners have heard you talk about a few times, but on the strength, on the fueling, on the sleep, not on increasing my training volume, but just on hitting these basic pieces. And just the difference in the last 6 months has been enormous in body composition and fitness and energy and all of that. And it's not rocket science, but it is doing those same simple things and seeing the knock-on effects in your life, that once you add a little bit of one thing in, focus a little bit on endurance training, getting to the gym a couple times a week, well, now I have to eat better, now I have to sleep better, and all of these other shifts start to occur. And that's the place where I'm at now.
It, I think you just highlighted once again something really important. Not trying to change everything at once. It just happens as a cascading effect, where suddenly then you look back and I think you and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that as a part of this journey, you've got rid of a whole bunch of medicine that you're on for many years. Is that accurate?
Yes, yes. There was a lot of, for the fatigue elements and all of that, and for other health related issues. Yes, I mean, this has not been just fluff and just saying, yeah, I feel kind of better. It's been medically for me a complete game changer. Not being able to get through a day without falling asleep, not being able to get through a day without being in a really dark place, like completely different now.
It's so empowering, and I'll tell you from a work standpoint, listeners, there is no one that works harder. By the way, so I'm in a unique position having this conversation, that I get to see the productivity on the other side, the work ethic on the other side, and if I was naive, I would say, how does she fit it all in? And of course, I understand it's the key to unlock your effectiveness. Um, Tiger, I've got two quick last questions for you. The first is uh, the first is, if you were going to give any advice to anyone that's either thinking about taking on a journey, a challenge like this, or maybe is on a journey already and is frustrated, what would your advice to be with you being so successful?
I think the first is just get started. Like, don't wait for inspiration and motivation to show up. Um, get out there and set a goal and get started. But with that, find support. Like, the best athletes, the best people in the world have a team around them to help them do this. you sure as heck can't do it alone. So find a community, find support. That I could not get here without everything that I've learned from the community of athletes around me, everything I've learned from the coaches. That has been pivotal. And don't worry about the blizzard of insane information out there that is so easy to get caught up in. Focus on doing a few really simple things right. Focus on a habit. Focus on eating really well after you do a workout. Focus on getting to the gym a couple times a week. Pick some basic habits and allow the progression to flow from there. And do strength training. That's the other piece. If you pick something, do strength training. But I think that's the biggest piece, is that you can't wait for everything to align perfectly, and you are more than capable. Like, you absolutely can get to this place. Just you're capable of so much more than you think. And Matt, you've said that to me several times, but just get in, pick some basic habits, get some support, and remember that the future you, the one that's going to be able to live independently or reach some huge goal, whatever your personal or athletic goals are down the road, that person is relying on you right now, like the you of today, to get up and take some action. And you don't want to let them down.
Don't let them down. Here's the last question. It's not my question. A few people knew you were coming on, and so I have to read it over here. It says, the question is, how do you on a daily basis keep your sanity having to work with Matt every day?
Oh, man.
It's your biggest life challenge, isn't it?
I can't legally answer that on the podcast, but we managed to suffer together. No, it's been such an awesome journey. Like I said, as an athlete, first and foremost, it's been unbelievable to be able to learn as much as I have and continue to as well. So, I suffer through your company so that I can pull a few good nuggets out here and there, and we make it.
We make it. Well, Tiger, thank you for sharing your story. Thanks for being a part of the show, but much more importantly, thanks for being such a key and valued member of Purple Patch. You are a lightning rod within the squad programs, and I know that everybody absolutely loves working with you in Purple Patch. So thank you very much, and here on out, don't fuck it up. Keep the journey going, and we'll take it from there. Thanks for being on the show.
I'll try, Matt. Thanks.
Guys, thanks so much for joining, and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube, and you will find it there, and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends, and it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment, and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page, and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. Let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience. And we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.